inherently, if you're following some kind of like playbook that has worked in the past, it's highly likely it's not going to work now because the pace of change is so fast.
This is CMO Insider, where you'll get candid takes from marketing power players. My name is Lara O'Reilly. I'm a senior correspondent at Business Insider. And today I'm here with Charli from Nothing. Now, Charli Smith, you're Chief Brand Officer at Nothing, a tech brand. You kind of pride yourself on your minimalist, kind of chic design, headphones, smartphones, wearables. And you joined, I think, earlier this year?
Very recently, yeah. So
Okay.
I joined at the beginning of January after 7 years at Loewe, the Spanish luxury fashion brand owned by LVMH.
And what brought you to Nothing? What was so compelling?
I knew after kind of that 7 year stint that I wanted to do something different. And Nothing just really appealed to me as a brand. First off, it's British, and I'm deeply patriotic and love the idea of being able to create another British super brand. I think the last one to emerge here was probably Dyson. So that's very exciting. And then also, I think the aesthetic and the values of the company really appealed to me. And I kind of retro futurism. It reminds me of kind of like 90s Casio and Blade Runner and all of that kind of fun stuff. And I think what Carl's been trying to do is to...
And it's Carl
Pei, sorry, I should say. Carl Pei, the founder of Nothing, previously of OnePlus, who, he's an incredible person to work with, real visionary, and has built Nothing, I think, very much in a community-driven way. Like, we've got this incredibly engaged community. It's very open in the way that sort of Apple and Samsung are probably actually kind of very closed, and that kind of really appealed to me. It felt very modern.
And what's the brief then? Why did they need to bring in a chief brand officer, you, at this time?
Well, I think we really want to be the most fashionable tech brand there's been for a while, and it's a pretty low bar. Because I think most tech is deeply unfashionable, right? Again, I was trying to think about it, and I was really going back to like things like the G-Shock watch as being something that was like genuinely a trend and genuinely cool. I think obviously Apple did it a bit in the late 90s with, the iPod and stuff. That really felt like a kind of like cool accessory. In marketing in general, not just in tech, there was this trend in roughly that same period outside of luxury fashion where performance marketing was the new exciting thing, and lots of brands began chasing kind of like conversion and efficiency and kind of really focusing on the data at the expense of brand building. And ultimately, I think we can see, if you look at Nike's share price, what that's done for them, that pivot. Whereas me kind of growing up in my early career, they were the bar in terms of kind of cultural brand marketing, and that's why they became so cool.
But on the flip side, is that because there aren't things like mass reach vehicles like TV aren't what they were? You can't do that like iconic 30-second spot in the same way.
100%. And actually, the way that I described it as at Loewe is that we had to act like a publisher, like a kind of magazine in our own right. So, instead of doing 3 big campaigns a year, we moved to doing like 2 shoots a week. It's a different model of working, but I think you can have the same cultural impact that you could before, but it's more of like a drip feed thing.
Yeah.
And that's why Nothing. So we just announced Charli XCX as our first global brand ambassador and shareholder in the brand. I think it's a really big moment for us as a company, and I've definitely seen that it's kind of the pickup and traction from it has been, really strong.
That's such a get. This is someone at the kind of like height of their career. Also, I imagine a brand ambassador that a Coke or a Dove might not feel comfortable with. Why does Charli XCX and the Nothing brand like work well together?
I think one of the reasons why is that it was a rallying against the fake perfection of social media in that world in a way. I think, she's previously described Brat as being like, sort of a strappy top, no bra, pack of fags and a big lighter. It's kind of this rawness and this realness that I think really resonated with her community and this kind of younger audience. And I think for Nothing, we're kind of railing against the sort of boringness that has taken over tech and hardware recently. I remember going to hi-fi shops growing up, and it was super exciting. There were all of these hi-fi stacks with like flashing lights and scrolling text. And, my hi-fi used to say good morning to me when I turned it on. And I feel like we've lost some of that playfulness and personality. So it kind of feels quite powerful to me to have this kind of alignment of, being a bit kind of countercultural and sort of believing that there's kind of an alternate, exciting future out there that's maybe not the present that we've been living in.
Mm-hmm. But I guess for all like the kind of the clinical aspects to what they do, these are hugely successful companies that are very mass market all over the world. They have huge marketing budgets. So how do you kind of cut through at a time when, Apple's marketing budget is in the multi-millions, and Samsung's is in the billions?
I think when you're small, you can't follow the same playbook as your bigger competitors because it'll just be a drop in the ocean. So you have to take on guerrilla techniques. And I love this example about Bumble, right? When it first launched, is that they went into loads of college campuses and put up posters saying no Instagram, no Facebook, no Bumble. And so all of the students were like, wait, what's Bumble? Why aren't I allowed to use it? And it was super cheap to do because they literally just printed out A4 sheets. And then they also kind of paid student ambassadors to wear Bumble merch and turn up late to lectures that everyone turned around and looked at them. And I think stuff like that is actually really creative and imaginative. And, we're thinking of things that we can do. So, for example, when we launched our pink phone, the 4A, we actually graffitied our own billboards with pink spray paint. And also our store, with things like I miss Paris Hilton.
Okay. How do you kind of maintain that element to your marketing as you get bigger? You're looking to massively scale up in the US, you're opening new stores. Presumably you want to expand globally. The idea is to be not just a challenger, but hopefully to challenge some of these bigger tech giants. So how do you maintain what feels super creative, but also perhaps can't be mass produced?
But I think if we really want to become the most loved tech company for this generation, we need to show how we're kind of giving back to culture and actually really sort of, leaving it with more than when we first kind of got involved. And I think some brands are very obviously just like sort of hijacking culture or kind of taking from it. That's why I think it's really important if we take music as an example. I really want to, in the future, be able to create like a platform where we can support emerging artists and kind of, show them to a new audience.
And now a word from our sponsor, LinkedIn Ads, to talk about how to cut the bull spend from your marketing budget.
Marketing leaders today are under more pressure than ever to prove real impact and concrete business outcomes. I'm joined by Keith Browning, Director of Global Brand Marketing at LinkedIn, to learn more. What makes LinkedIn uniquely suited to deliver measurable business outcomes, especially in B2B?
LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world, so we're built for this. We're built for B2B. So that means, firstly, being able to find the right people. So, you can target by job title or seniority, company, etc. But there's also the professional context component as well. So people come to LinkedIn to learn, to evaluate potential solutions, and certainly to make buying decisions as well.
What's your biggest challenge right now as a marketer? As I say, you're kind of advancing in the US. I know you exist in the US, but you're moving there in a big way.
So for the US, I think we have quite a few plans, and I think Charli XCX being one of them. Obviously, she's a British artist, but with huge cultural relevance in the US, and we're also opening stores. We're kind of a store/studio in San Francisco, and also another store in New York. I think kind of one of the biggest challenges, not just as a marketer, but for the industry more broadly at the moment, is the cost of memory. Because I'm not sure if you're aware, but it's increasing exponentially. So that's like an interesting challenge as we grow to kind of navigate the next 18 months.
And does that become a brand challenge for you? I mean, it sounds like a manufacturing one, but
I think it's going to be a challenge over the next 6 months. I think you're going to see most tech companies putting their prices up.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting thing to explain to consumers, because for a very long time we've been used to the price of technology decreasing. And it feels counterintuitive as we're on the cusp of this AI revolution for the price to be going up, not down.
Mm-hmm. And what is your AI positioning? And we've been speaking mostly about your kind of hardware products, your phones and earbuds and so on. But you are embracing AI in your OS.
But I think our long-term plan for AI, is that all devices are going to become AI native in the next couple of years, and that we're going to move from this kind of app world to a more agentic world that's more kind of widget based, where essentially, the interface can adapt to your needs and deliver you the relevant information that you require. So everything that we're building now is kind of towards that vision.
And how do you think AI kind of stands at the moment, sort of as a brand? It feels like there's a bit of an anti-AI backlash going on, especially among Gen Z. We're seeing lots of boos at commencement speeches, and
for sure. And I think we're calling our sort of AI-powered products essential because it's more about what they do. It's like this is a better version of dictation. I think a lot of these leaders in tech of these AI companies are really talking up AGI and the fact that AI is going to take over our jobs in order to inflate the valuation of the company and get more funding. But I strongly believe that that's not the reality that we're heading towards. I think if you look at the Industrial Revolution, there were sort of headlines in the newspapers that machines were going to take our jobs. And I really believe that we're going to enter a new era of creativity because, like me, for example, now if I think of an idea, I can build it myself. To me, AI at the moment that is an incredible tool for creativity and productivity. And it's really a kind of marketing and a branding problem that's creating this very strong backlash towards it. Because all of these kids, by the way, who are anti-AI are on ChatGPT the whole time.
So you're a marketer then. How do you solve a problem like the AI brand problem right now?
The focus has to be on the value it can deliver, not on it as a sort of concept with kind of like robotics and kind of all of that stuff,
Right.
I think it's interesting, right? If you compare the approach of the US and China, in China, AI is just being implemented in different categories and different businesses in a very practical way. And no one's talking up this kind of sort of, artificial intelligence kind of robotic future. And so people are much more comfortable with it.
How has it changed how you work and the people that you hire?
Yeah, well, going back to this point on kind of creativity and productivity, we're trying to automate everything that we can so that these business as usual tasks of analytics and optimization and data reporting can all basically be done no longer manually, but kind of using AI, so that the very talented humans we have on the team can spend less time on the reporting and more time on coming up with great ideas to move the business forward. So yeah, I sometimes think that maybe we've just reached this point of kind of peak work and that actually we're going to have more time in the future to come up with ideas and be creative.
And now a word from our sponsor, LinkedIn Ads, to talk about how to cut the bull spend from your marketing budget.
LinkedIn's Cut the Bull Spend campaign urges marketers to rethink how they evaluate performance and where their budgets actually drive impact. I'm here with Keith Browning, Director of Global Brand Marketing at LinkedIn, to learn more. How do you define bull spend in practical terms?
So I'd say bull spend is really wasted advertising spend. It's any investment that leads to a great looking dashboard. So the numbers look good, the arrows are going in the right direction, but really it's not actually doing anything to drive the business forward. So it doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
How does LinkedIn help marketers reduce waste and increase efficiency in real terms?
At LinkedIn, you don't have to pay for attention from people who are never going to buy from you. Mass reach works great if you're selling breakfast cereal, not so much if you're selling CRMs. That's really where LinkedIn is different.
There does seem to be a big trend in tech at the moment, and in Silicon Valley more kind of broadly, about going direct, right? Like bypassing traditional media, traditional reviews, maybe, if starting your own podcast, starting your own media brands. Is that something that you sort of subscribe to as well?
I don't really see it so much as bypassing, as more just kind of working across all of the different sort of available channels that there are. One of the things that, this is even before my time at Nothing, the team had done this amazing job of acting kind of like a new age kind of content creator and publisher. Now other brands are approaching us to work with us as a content creator, which is a really...
How does that work?
Well, because I think they see us as experts in being able to create this kind of new age media, for YouTube, for social. And so we can do these kind of brand collaborations where we're telling different stories. Because that's the thing, I think we're not just telling product stories on social media, right? We're telling stories across tech and across culture. And that's really when I say I want us to act like a publisher, I want it to be like a new age media version of reading like Wired magazine or something, where it's like you have your tech section, you have your fashion section, you have your music section. And I think that's why, or like how you can build a community around the brand, because people know you're not just selling products, you're also participating in culture, and you're as interested as they are in the different trends that are emerging and how that all kind of connects together. And I think we want to give people that access. We want to let people in and make them feel part of the company.
It's a mix between luxury and startup, the kind of thing that you're doing. Like there's like the grassroots level, and then going up to the the incredible like billboards that you have in Shoreditch at the moment with Charli XCX. I'm wondering how other marketers at bigger brands should think about applying some of these playbooks.
Inherently, if you're following some kind of like playbook that has worked in the past, it's highly likely it's not going to work now because the pace of change is so fast. To me, that would be like my number one piece of advice to marketers out there, which is like, be incredibly hungry to learn about your customer and where they're spending their time and how they're doing it. And then think about how you can then show up in an authentic way in that place in a way that's going to really matter to them.
What are some of the newer platforms that you're getting excited about? Maybe they don't even have to be new, but kind of new to the brand.
I'm really fascinated. I think it's less of a kind of new type of platform, but I'm really fascinated at the moment by kind of this whole thing of like clipping networks. Those clips people are watching on YouTube, they're watching them on TikTok, they're watching them on, Instagram Reels. So that's definitely something that I'm finding fascinating. I'm also fascinated by the fact that I've met a few people now who have created accounts solely using AI. And if you follow the logical progression of that thought, right, if more and more people do that and more of social media just becomes AI content, will we as humans want to spend less and less time on it? And therefore will, Meta and Google and others then try and fight it and block it off the platforms because they know that actually we as humans want to see content from other humans. So I'm just constantly thinking about like what's the dynamic and how will trends change. And I think one of the reactions to this might be that brands start doing more in-person physical events and activations again, which also is kind of interesting.
Well, that seems to be the thing that gets cut through now, right? Is people, it's not whatever the active, the post was on Nike's account. It was the 10 people taking pictures of it or taking videos of it on TikTok, and one of those went viral, and that's how it reached a bigger audience.
Exactly, like the Arsenal players at 5 o'clock in the morning outside the Emirates Stadium.
Glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. So I think that's why it's incredibly hard to predict virality, but I think it is really important when you're coming up with ideas to try and think like, what's something about this that people might want to share with each other, and then how can we help kind of like build on that idea and amplify it.
And just to end on Charli, really interested, I imagine there's a lot of people who'd be interested in working with you or a brand like Nothing. What could people do to stand out to make sure that they'll capture your attention, be it on social media, on a resume, in an interview? Like, what are the kind of things that stick out to you?
Well, I think first off, you'd be surprised. I've hired people from their LinkedIn messages before. So
you're going to get a deluge now.
I do think that being proactive and reaching out to people is important. I've had someone write an album as their resume and put it on vinyl and send the vinyl. And that
Did you hire them?
we first off we played it in the office. We all loved it. Then basically invited them for an interview. We didn't actually have a job opening at the time,
Right.
but it got an interview, which I think just shows that, you know, it's really powerful to do things like that, because it's showing your, you know, entrepreneurial spirit, your creativity, you know, all of those things together.
That set the bar quite high. Okay.
Yeah. Now everyone's just going to be turning their CVs into albums.
Well, you know, at least it's physical copy. It's human endeavor. That's what we want to hear
Exactly.
in this world of AI.
Yeah.
Charli, thank you so much for joining us on CMO Insider.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
And if you enjoyed this interview, please like and subscribe for more CMO Insider content. You can also find more marketing news, analysis, scoops, interviews at businessinsider.com.